They call us healers, though I sometimes wonder if what we do in these tents can be called healing at all. The wounded arrive in waves, carried on stretchers, dragged through the mud by comrades, sometimes crawling on their own arms when their legs are gone. They scream, they beg, they bleed, and we do what we can with the little the Munitorum grants us. But the truth is this: we do not save lives. We only prolong suffering long enough for the machine of war to grind them up again. I began this diary not for posterity, not for the glory of the regiment, but to keep myself sane. If I write down what I see, what I do, perhaps I can convince myself that I remain human, though some days, when the stench of blood and rot clings to me even as I sleep, I begin to doubt it. The Medicae Tents are nothing more than canvas stretched over poles, stained so deep with blood and pus that no amount of scrubbing will ever make them white again. They sag in the rain, they swelter in the heat, they tear under shrapnel like wet paper. Inside, the air is thick, humid with breath and pain, buzzing always with flies that feast on the open wounds of the half. Dead, we have no proper supplies. A few scalpels, their edges dull from overuse. Bandages cut from the shirts of the fallen. Needles reused so often they are more rust than steel. We clean what we can with boiling water, when there is time and fuel for the fire. But mostly we make do with spit and prayers. The beds, if you can call them that, are nothing more than stretchers laid side by side on the mud, each one occupied by a soldier groaning, coughing, clutching at what remains of their bodies. We are always full, always overflowing. The wounded pile up outside, waiting their turn, though many die in line before they ever see the inside. The only constant sound is the screaming, high, pitched, guttural, unending. I have grown so used to it that when silence falls, I feel a chill, for silence here means death has swept the tent. They come in waves, always in waves. A bombardment falls, a trench is overrun, an assault falters, and suddenly the stretchers are carried in 2, 3, 10 at a time. Men, missing arms, legs, faces, men with bellies torn open, their innards spilling like ropes of pale sausage. Men burned so badly their skin hangs in tatters, their eyes boiled blind. The worst are the quiet ones, the ones who make no sound at all as they are carried in, their eyes staring at nothing. They are already half gone, yet we must still go through the motions, binding their wounds, stitching their flesh, even when we know it is hopeless. The commissars watch us as closely as they watch the soldiers, and mercy killings are forbidden. To ease suffering without orders is heresy. So we patch them, pump them with stims, and send them back to die properly on the field. Once, a boy no older than 17 was brought in with both legs gone. He looked at me with wide, tearless eyes and whispered, "Please, just let me go." I pretended not to hear him. I sewed his arteries shut, wrapped his stumps in rags, injected him with adrenaline, and an hour later he was screaming as they loaded him back into the trucks. The next day he was back in my tent, what was left of him, riddled with lace burns. This time, he did not speak. His eyes were glassy, his mouth half open, and when I closed his lids, I whispered the prayer he had wanted from me. Our instruments are crude, our methods cruder still. Amputation is our most common procedure. Infection spreads quickly in the trenches, and a wound left untreated for a day becomes gangrenous by the next. We lop off limbs with saws dulled from use, the teeth chewing rather than cutting, the bones splintering under the pressure. We cauterize with heated blades, the smell of burning flesh, filling the tent until even the flies retreat. The patients thrash and scream, held down by orderlies who whisper apologies in their ears. We have no anesthetics but recaf mixed with rotgut, and most of the time not even that. Stitches are made from whatever thread we can find. Bootlaces, wire, even strips of uniform. The skin does not always knit well, but that does not matter. A soldier stitched poorly can still march, still hold a lasgun, still die on command. Sometimes, when we are lucky, the tech priests gift us with stimulants, combat drugs that keep the wounded alive long enough to be useful again. They flood the veins with fire, burning out infection, numbing pain, forcing muscles to function. But the cost is high. Those who survive often come back shaking, raving, their bodies addicted to the fire in their blood. We use them until they collapse, and then we discard them. The Munitorum calls it efficiency. I call it cruelty. You cannot imagine the smell unless you have lived inside it. It is more than blood, more than rot. It is a stench that seeps into your pores, into your very soul. A mix of iron, pus, excrement, sweat, and smoke. The smell of death trying to claw its way free of flesh, and of flesh refusing to let it go. At first, it made me retch. I would stumble outside, clutching my stomach, vomiting into the mud while the others laughed bitterly at the green recruit. But now it has become part of me. I carry it wherever I go. Even when the battle pauses and the air clears, I can smell it clinging to my clothes, my hair, my skin. I taste it when I eat. I breathe it when I sleep. And sometimes, when the wind is right, I smell it even in my dreams. They tell us mercy is weakness, that suffering is holy, that pain purifies the soul for the Emperor's service. The commissars make sure we do not forget it. They prowl the tents with bolt pistols drawn, their eyes sharp, watching for any sign of compassion. I have seen a Medicae executed on the spot for smothering a man whose screams would not stop. Another was shot for using a scalpel to open a vein and let a soldier bleed out peacefully. These are considered crimes. We are told that every breath must be preserved, every body mended, no matter how broken, until the battlefield takes them in its proper way. And so we obey. We keep them alive, if not whole, and send them back. We listen to the pleas, the sobs, the whispered prayers for release. There are moments when I think I have gone mad, when the screaming rises to such a pitch that it becomes music, a hideous symphony of agony, when the rivers of blood running through the tent seem to form words, messages written in crimson, when I look into the eyes of the wounded and see not men, but puppets, strings of muscle and bone being pulled by hands. I cannot see. The other Medicae speak little. We are too tired, too numb. Sometimes we laugh, dark, hollow laughter, when a man survives the most gruesome wounds, only to die tripping over a loose rock outside. Sometimes we cry when a child's face, no older than our own siblings, stares up at us from the stretcher, but mostly we are silent. Silence is easier. Silence means we do not have to admit what we are doing. The war does not end. The waves do not stop. We patch them, we stitch them, we pump them with stimulants, and we send them back. And within days they return to us, broken again, bleeding again. Some come back so often we know their names, their faces, their scars. They joke with us as we sew them shut, as though this were a game, a sport, and not their slow dismemberment wound man. Corporal Huldren has been in my tent 6 times in 2 months, shot through the shoulder, Legs shattered by shrapnel, half his face burned by promethium. Each time, I patch him, and each time he returns laughing, saying, "Still not dead yet, Doc." I wonder if he knows he will never leave this place alive. Perhaps he does, and perhaps the laughter is all that keeps him from breaking. We are not healers. We are cogs in the machine, just like the soldiers, just like the officers, just like the commissars. We keep the wheels turning, keep the bodies marching, keep the grinder fed. The Emperor does not need us to save lives. He needs us to spend them more efficiently. I once believed in the oath I swore, that I would do no harm, that I would preserve life. Now I know the truth. Here, harm is inevitable, and preservation is just another word for prolonging death. I do not know how long I can keep writing. Already I feel my hands trembling not from fatigue, but from something deeper, a sickness of the soul. Each day I step into the tent. Each day I smell the blood and hear the screams. Soon, I fear, I will be nothing more than a machine myself, stitching flesh without thought, amputating without care, blind to the pain before me. Perhaps that is mercy, in its own way.